It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear. And it absolutely will not stop. Ever. Until you are dead.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. I was going to review United States of Captain America yesterday, but it was such a... there was so much stuff to talk about. I was like, I'll never be able to get everything in by myself. So I talked to my good friend, Doug Ernst. Hopefully you saw us talk on the channel yesterday, and we had a good conversation. And he said, yeah, well, let's go talk about United States Captain America and maybe some of the issues with this comic book that disguises itself as a celebration of Captain America. But that's not the way I took it. Obviously, here with me is comic book writer, journalist, Doug Ernst. How you doing?
Hey, man, thanks for having me back. Quick turnaround.
Absolutely. I'm glad you could make it. You made a little time for me here because I know Captain America is a very important character for you. I believe Spidey's your main guy, but Captain America's number two and was, one of the reasons that maybe you enlisted into the Army while you were a younger man.
Yeah, that's I've shared that story once or twice before where there was a comic shop called Moondogs in Schaumburg, Illinois that was literally across the street from an Army recruiting station. And before I went into the recruiting station, the last thing I did was I was going through like issues and Captain America and stuff like that. And then I walked in and I was like, hey, can you get me out of here in like a week? And they were like, we can do that. And I was gone, not in a week, but it was pretty fast.
Absolutely. So obviously you and I both share a bond. We were both in the military. I know some people probably be like, oh, Wes will be outraged about this. Not really. This is kind of what I would come to expect from a Marvel comic about Captain America. He really hasn't been portrayed as an American hero for quite some time. It's Tuesday. What do you want? How can I get outraged at this? This is kind of what I expected. I've been reading Chris Cantwell's Iron Man run. Definitely changed my opinion from when he originally did his little Doctor Doom miniseries. Iron Man's one of the worst comics out there. I'm surprised they gave him such a high-profile gig, and he definitely didn't let me down here, Doug. I don't think he realizes who Jack Kirby and Joe Simon, the creators of Captain America, are. I don't think he realizes why they created the character, and I don't think he realizes after they created the character and what they were saying about the world events at that moment that they decided to go and put their own asses on the line and go enlist and go and fight the war in Europe.
Yeah, a lot of these writers, it's really sort of self-insert sort of things. I read the first few issues of Iron Man and then I checked out. I couldn't deal with it anymore. And then when I read this, as soon as I saw his name, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. And like you said, this is a guy. He might have a certain level of intelligence and a certain mastery or understanding of the craft of storytelling, but it's not really him trying to put himself into the character, showing empathy. It's just him saying like, I want to do my own thing with this character and sort of mold him to my liking.
Yeah, so instead of writing Captain America, as he was created, what he was supposed to inspire, he decided to put his own mouth and basically talk for him. And the first 6 pages, you might have had a different takeaway from this. I would characterize it as almost a hate letter to America, or at least what America, kind of stands for.
Yeah, so as we were saying right before we went live, with Captain America, it's almost like clockwork where he has an existential crisis. He goes up against the evil white, supremacist groups. Sorry about the YouTube algorithm. He's shown up in his own book by other heroes and those sorts of things. There's some sort of like hyper partisan Cap story, like once every year and a half or two, where it makes national headlines and it'll get picked up by USA Today or whomever. And it's like, so you kind of get it. And it's like all of these writers, they all sort of agree with each other. They all are of the same mold ideologically and in terms of like activism. And so you just get this same thing over and over and over again. It's like a dirge. It's like a funeral. And it's depressing.
Absolutely. So before I get into this first page and start reading it, I do want to say the editor on this is Alana Smith. Are you surprised by that, Doug?
Oh, you know what? I didn't even look at the editor. I just saw Cantwell, and I was like, but no, that doesn't surprise me either. You could, if you basically think about it, Captain America, and you're saying, okay, what would this guy write? Just give me some bullet points about what you're going to see. And you could just start saying like white white or something like that. There's certain words that'll come up, and you could write it yourself without even knowing. People think that you could read minds.
Yeah, so it wasn't surprised Alana Smith ended up being the editor. So let's get to this, what I would term as Chris Cantwell's hate letter to America, at least what it represents. And these are the words, or at least the thoughts of Captain America, starting on the first page. I'm loyal to nothing except the dream. I actually said that once. Here's the thing about a dream, though. A dream isn't real. When we wake up, it goes away. And we're left with the yearning inside, like something was taken away from us. At least that's one kind of dream. But lately, spending my days in this country, as the years march by, I'm starting to think America actually has two dreams and one lie. So Captain America is giving up on the dream. He's not, he's not skeptical of the government. Maybe he doesn't want to play along with their games. He's just giving up on the dream and what America itself represents. That's not Captain America. No matter what Christopher Cantwell or anyone at Marvel thinks about America, and you can think whatever you want. I went out and did my 20 years. I went out and I did my deployments. And I did that all so anybody in America can think what they want about the country and say what they want. But you're writing a comic. This is supposed to be a professional gig, and you're not representing Captain America's position on this. And that's what really pisses me off about it. Not what he says. It's that he's saying this is what Captain America says.
Yeah, so the dream, quote unquote dream, is America's highest ideals that are enshrined in the Declaration of Independence and codified into law by the U.S. Constitution. You can shout they're two of the greatest political documents ever written throughout all of human history. And they're aspirational, inspirational, and anybody who reads them with an objective lens can be like, no, this is a beacon of light and freedom. And you can write Captain America in a way where it's not cheesy, it's not goofy, but at the same time, he embodies those ideals in a positive, uplifting way, not in a, oh, woe is me sort of way. That's what they do, and they have done for really a couple decades now.
Yeah, so it continues. The first American dream is the one that isn't real. It's the one some people expect us to be handed to them. And then they get angry when it disappears, when the truth is it never really existed in the first place. Germans have the neat word Vernois. It means a longing or nostalgia for a place you've never been, or a place that might not even exist at all. We have a word for that in the United States. It's called Americana. Someone actually said, someone said, Christopher Cantwell tries to hide his disdain for America, but ultimately it comes out in the end that he's not a big fan of the country. Where's he hiding it?
Yeah, I mean, they try and gussy it up with, the language and whatever, and it's just like, so some people will read it and they'll be like, oh, wow, like that's so, it's basically pseudo-intellectual claptrap. And like you said, of a guy who really has some problems with the country, and he's jaded, and he's just not a very happy man, and he's just infusing his own anger and resentment into the character of Steve Rogers.
Yeah, it's just so disappointing that Marvel would put somebody that literally despises what the character himself represents to this degree. And, this is supposed to be a celebration, Doug. There's no celebrating going on here. It's a funeral.
It's self-flagellation all the time. You cannot. They actually don't like the idea of patriotism. If you're an American and you actually believe that there is a place for patriotism in the culture, then that's a bad thing. It's only other countries that are allowed to show national pride, wave flags, this sort of thing. But if you're an American, anytime you do that, then it's like somehow a bad thing. And they want to get into this thing where all cultures are equal. They even there's a part in the book where he says we're only at our best when, I think I wrote on some notes down, when we keep nobody out. Nobody. So there's no national sovereignty. You can't even have an America. It's just like the open borders sort of thing. No nation in the entire, like every nation has some semblance of control over their borders. They know who comes in, who comes out. And there's certain places where, I mean, you want to talk about not being melting pots. I mean, you could just run down the list of countries where they fail over and over again if you put them up against America in terms of having a diverse culture.
Absolutely. I've been in the military. I've been all over the world. Diversity, as far as culture goes, nobody really even touches America as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, I might be a little bit biased. Let's get to this. Let's continue on this obituary. That's what we should call it. This is the white picket fence fallacy that, if we're not careful, becomes nationalism, jingoism. That dream isn't real. It never was, because that dream doesn't get along nicely with reality. Other cultures, immigrants, and the poor, the suffering, people easily come to be seen as different or un-American. The white picket fence becomes a gate to keep others out. We're at the best when we keep no one out. A good dream is shared radically, shared with everyone. When something isn't shared, it can become the American lie. Doug, I was born in America. You know, my wife is from the Philippines. We live in the Philippines. Going by the metrics that are out there, if we moved back to the U.S. and both decided to enter the job market, she would be expected to out-earn me based on the numbers as an immigrant from the Philippines over, somebody that was raised in America, because of the opportunities that are afforded to people that arrive into the borders legally.
Yeah, everything about that little passage there is bizarre in that, once again, there's not a problem with immigrants coming into the United States. There's a problem with immigrants that either just don't come here legally and they sneak in, so you don't know who's in there, or also if you brought in immigrants who are not in alignment with the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution, then you would fundamentally change America into something that it is not.
They don't assimilate into the culture.
Yeah, they have to actually agree with our guiding principles. But what he's saying is that everyone should be allowed in, and they should just be able to think whatever the heck they want, even if it has nothing to do with our founding principles and our ideals that were there at the start. And so you're just like, you're just tangling yourself up into intellectual knots, trying to put yourself up on a moral pedestal and be like, look how awesome I am. The more miserable that I am, the more virtuous that I am.
Absolutely. So the obituary continues. The lie is a real problem because it comes in the form of an empty promise. A while back, we told the world they could come here for a better life, but too often we turn our backs on them. Instead of a dream, they get handed a raw deal. Then there's the second dream. This one's real, but we don't hold it or own it. Heck, we can't even touch it. We reach for it. We work, we toil, we struggle, we fight together. We may never reach it, but we never stop trying. That's my dream. The Smithsonian is putting on a special exhibit called Americans Who Fight. Tell you the truth, I don't really love the name, only because sometimes we fight when I feel like we could handle things another way. There, he's not even specifically talking about what the second dream is, but it is what Captain America should be fighting for. You know, not the white picket fence and the bring us, you're tired, you're hungry, you're poor, the melting pot of America that we've always kind of stood for. And then hey, listen, I don't think we should be in so many conflicts either. I'll agree with you there.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where there's a legitimate point to be made, whether it's about just wars or whether it's about how many people should be allowed into the country so that they can properly assimilate into the culture. How open do you want to be to others, particularly if they're fleeing from tyrannical regimes around the world? If they're coming from Cuba, if they're swimming in shark-infested waters to get here because of communist police states, then it's like, yeah, we want those people to come here or whatever. But what they do is sort of take a negative element of the United States, a skeleton in its closet, and then they blow it up into humongous proportions. And then America is defined by the skeletons in its closets, while simultaneously denying that other nations also have skeletons in their closet. We're the only ones that have ever done anything that have some sort of original sin going on. Every other, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Syria, China, all of these places, they're apparently little angels that we could never criticize. But the United States, we're just constantly the bad guys. We are the Red Skull.
Barely. And then in my mind, there were Americans who fought, sure, but also reached. They laid themselves bare, and they did it without serums or powers or metal suits. The museum wants me to put my shield on display. They have an old replica, but they believe the real deal will mean more to people. But unlike those other folks, the ones who reach with selfless clarity, I find myself too often stripped of what I am supposed to stand for. Yeah, stripped of what you're supposed to stand for by the writers from Marvel Comics.
Yeah, it's like we were saying, it's a bunch of ideologues and activists who have decided we know more so what the creators of Captain America should have done than what they did do. And we are going to they're playing Quantum Leap with Captain America and Iron Man and Spider-Man. They got to right the wrongs. They think that they're Sam Beckett? And they need to right all the wrongs of Marvel history and turn these characters into sadness spiral characters that just beat themselves up all the time and beat the reader up and beat the nation up.
Yeah, this is the end of his eulogy, and then we'll kind of get into the adventure story a little bit. I'm pretty easy to repurpose for various people's agendas. Hey, Chris Cantwell will know that. I'm also an easy target when things in this country get bad, and believe me, they can get bad. Sometimes it gets so far past from 1940 when I first got injected with all of it, it seems pretty ridiculous. Honestly, if I've started to wonder if I divide more than unite. So often a shield can become something to hide behind. I wonder lately if I've been hiding too.
That part where he says it all gets ridiculous, that is actually the writer saying he believes Captain America is ridiculous. He is letting you know that he doesn't even...
What he represents.
He doesn't even like what the character represents, like you said, and he needs to change because if you write him how he was supposed to be written, then it is just ipso facto ridiculous. So we need to fix that problem. No, it's actually you don't have the creative chops to do Captain America the way that he was supposed to be done because you have a negative worldview or a negative view of the United States.
It's crazy because Captain America, what he represents in the times that we're on, this could be the most compelling comic character, in the industry, telling the most cutting edge stories, with some politics, because there's always been politics in comics, Doug. If you haven't been told that a billion times, I've heard it a lot. But you can present these kinds of scenarios and these stories from the point of view of the character and do something legitimate with it rather than just going and destroying someone else's character.
Yeah, so one of the cool things about Western civilization is that it actually does some form of introspection. It tries to improve itself. We're trying to become a more perfect union. So it is incredibly healthy to actually step outside yourself and look at yourself with an objective eye. Where have I gone wrong? Where have I done others wrong? Where have I failed to live up to my highest ideals? So there's nothing wrong with having that in a Captain America comic, but again, what they do is they strip out all of the things that someone would actually take pride and honor in terms of being an American citizen. They don't want any of that in there, and then they only want to actually inject a super serum into the negativity of Captain America and then have that be front and center creatively.
Yeah, and DC is doing the same thing really with Superman a lot of the times. And that he's just a new mouthpiece to present, the new way of thinking and then just not really respect the character. And that's where it bothers me. I'm not outraged. Like I said, whatever. You guys, I've put my ass on the line and people can say and do what they want and protest and they can have their own beliefs. And I'm very proud of the work that I did. It just bothers me when they go and destroy someone else's work. Now, essentially that is the end of the eulogy, and we get into the story portion. And I do want to say this before we get into this, Doug. The art from Dale Eaglesham, I think he does a really good job. It looks nice.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with the art at all. So, sorry to the artist if you think this is bleeding into your work. Then this has nothing to do with you. This has to do with the writer and editorial.
Absolutely. It's a well-illustrated comic. And at that point, Captain America, it appears, well, it's not Captain America, it's Steve Rogers. It appears he's attacked by another version of Captain America. You wonder if it's in his head or something, but his shield is missing at the end, so someone has legitimately attacked him, stolen his shield, and then the adventure begins. He gets together, I believe, with, who is it? It's with Falcon and, is it John, the other guy that was Captain America?
Correct.
Yeah. And they go off on their adventure. What do you think of the adventure? Did he at least sell it and do a good job on the adventure portion of the story?
So even with that, there's the Aaron Fisher character who is this young, homeless
Captain America, the Railways,
who they call the unhoused Captain America, because we need a euphemism for homelessness. And he says to Sam Wilson, "You fight for everyone. I mean, everyone." Because apparently Steve Rogers doesn't fight for everyone. Steve Rogers only fights for wink, wink, white people. And so like that was another instance where I was like, dude, you cannot help yourself. You always have to find a way to like insert. Oh, a black character has come onto the screen. Let's tell him how he is for everybody, but Captain America, Steve Rogers, is only for the white picket fences.
You have the Damon Wayans head go message. Well, that was that that South Central while drinking your juice in the hood movie. Message every time you're supposed to gain something from the story.
Yeah, it's like on cue. They know like, okay, if this character shows up, I got to make sure that I elevate him. And it's a zero-sum game because you can't have Sam Wilson and Steve Rogers actually both simultaneously elevated as characters. If Sam Wilson or if Steve Rogers is somehow elevated, then Sam Wilson is being denigrated somehow. So therefore, we have to be like, no, Sam Wilson, you're the hero for all Americans, not Steve Rogers. This doesn't even make any like. Again, it's just these constant little jabs. They're needling you creatively over and over and over again, and it never ends.
What did you think about the new character, the Captain America of the Railways? Obviously, he was in the main story, but he also had a backup story. By the time I got to that point, I had mentally checked out. It was pretty predictable, and he seemed a bit overpowered.
So this is another instance where you have this teenage kid. As far as I know, maybe I'm wrong. I didn't see any evidence of having training in martial arts or anything along those lines. He didn't seem particularly strong. Just seemed like a kid with a heart of gold, and he wanted to emulate Captain America, but then he was taking on these military contractors when he was imprisoned at this like site to do forced labor within the United States, and he's taking on guys with M16s and all of this, and he's got a wooden shield. I think it was a wooden shield that he crafted himself, and he's just taking out these guys that probably actually, you were saying before we came on, were like Blackwater sort of guys. So he just has magic Captain America powers because I don't even know why. So it's like, this is just bad writing. This is bad writing. And as I was telling you before, like you don't even need to get into the LGBTQ plus sort of stuff. Forget that. Just the writing alone in terms of him being able to do all these things and acting as if he has superpowers when he doesn't, like, that's just bad. That's bad writing.
Absolutely. So not the best way to ring in the 4th of July weekend, in my opinion, but that's what Marvel chose to do. Whatever. If you want to go and take an enormous dump on Joe Simon and Jack Kirby's legacy and their creation, that's on you guys. And you can have the clap back on it. Obviously, there are some people that are going to tell you, Doug, this is the greatest Captain America story of all times. Well, if you believe that, then you didn't read it. You don't like Captain America. Because it's not a Captain America story. This is a Chris Cantwell, if he were Captain America story. And that's really the issue that I have with it. Do you have a suggestion if people want to read a real good Captain America story for 4th of July that they can go out and find? I know you're a big Cat fan.
Oh, geez. I don't know.
Sorry
I'm always
on the spot.
Yeah, I'm always a fan. So I'm biased, but I think that if you actually, so the weird thing is the actual Captain America titles, a lot of times the stories in those were not very good, and he ended up becoming like a werewolf and things like that. But actually, it's funny you should mention that. So I would say actually the Avengers around the 270 era. Around this particular era is where you actually have some really. Oh, here we go. 277. I'm glad you asked that. So the Avengers from this era had some like really awesome Cap in it. But as far as the actual, here's another one. This was one of my favorite. When I was a kid, I read this issue like countless times. I'll let you offer up one from the actual Captain America, but I was a fan of the Avengers growing up, and so the Cap that I really liked was usually leading the team into battle.
I say go back and read Captain America #1, the introduction of the character, watch him go punch out Hitler, and then do what I did, or I'm going to do. We haven't got to 4th of July yet. I'm going to girl out with the boys, and then we are going to put on The Sandlot. And we're going to watch a nice little baseball movie. It's got a little 4th of July in it. Going to teach my kids not to chew tobacco. And, they're going to have fun, watching the kids play with the dog.
Very cool.
That's what we're going to do. But if you're expecting for an uplifting Captain America story for your 4th of July weekend, the United States of Captain America is not the place to go. What are your final thoughts on this? And are you going to keep reading it?
I'm going to read old school sort of Captain America. So Captain America and Daredevil dueling in the darkness. I'll probably read old school G.I. Joe. Actually, speaking of G.I. Joe, since it's 4th of July, so got some old G.I. Joe going. So anyway, sorry if I got a little off track there. But yeah, when you get into the modern Cap, this is not the Cap that I wanna read on 4th of July weekend.
Is there any chance, we know Ta-Nehisi Coates' Captain America run is ended or ending. There's going to be a new creator on it. Do you think that they'll put somebody on that enjoys the character and might actually let him represent what the character was intended to, or do you think it'll just be more propaganda in the future?
I think as long as you have Alana Smith and Tom Brevoort and that whole crew, they're going to just find someone who agrees with them ideologically and in terms of the editorial direction, which is, again, more of sad Cap and funeral Cap.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. So, Doug, thank you very much for visiting today, talking about this issue. Obviously, this will be up on Friday. I want to wish everyone a happy 4th of July. We will have a couple of streams on Saturday and Sunday. Some of my friends are still willing to talk comic books on the holiday weekend, and I hope you and the missus have a wonderful time celebrating America.
Cool, man. You too.